This segment of Hak5 is brought to you by Domain.com.
All right, it's time to get practical setting up a Linux OpenSSH server before we do the trivia in Technost.
Yeah, so I can actually connect to something that has been created, because what?
Okay, so in all of these examples, we've already been using, like you just did with Windows, connecting to ddk.hak5.org.
Yes.
How did that already exist?
I don't know.
And it did because, it's actually VPS 20403 here, and if I go over to root and just show you this, the reason for that is because I don't feel like remembering that. It's not as pretty.
Oh, yeah, me neither.
Yeah.
So you basically renamed it.
Yes, well, I just pointed my DNS over there, so
You'll have to show us how to do that
Yeah,
sometime.
well, we actually did a big thing with whiteboards and everything on DNS.
Oh, that was back in the day when I was not here.
Yeah, and so that I guess you were absent. You were
I was
tardy.
absent.
Yeah, don't skip a class,
I
right?
know.
And so I'm going to just show you on like Ubuntu here. It's really simple to just install and set up an SSH server.
Okay.
Sudo apt-get install SSH. I'm serious, that's it. And so it's actually already installed on my machine, I believe.
Really?
Nope. Okay, now it is. And that was it. So now I'm set up and get
That's
this.
all you have to do to set up a server.
Well, that's the first step. Here, that's the thing. Is a lot of tutorials online will tell you, oh, hey, just issue sudo sudo apt-get install SSH.
Yeah.
And now I could say SSH to Darren at 127.0.0.1. Connect myself over SSH, and I'm going to be like, oh yeah, that's the fingerprint, sure.
Yeah, that's me.
And then I'll log in, and hooray, I just SSH'd over to myself.
So when you did that, where it said the authenticity can be established, is that what shows up if somebody has messed with the public key, or if they're pretending to be your server?
In this case, it was because it was not in my known hosts, and I don't want to get too much into that because we're talking about that next week. But this is the RSA key fingerprint. And we'll get into that then.
Sweet.
But that was okay. So bam, quick and dirty. I just created an SSH server. But there's so much more to it than going ahead and doing an apt-get install. I mean, there's a lot of configuration. Sure, right out of the box it's going to work, and as you saw, I was able to install an SSH server and then, connect locally, and it's on port 22 like it should be. And then you could, I guess, just port forward your router to it, and Bob's your uncle. But there's a bunch of other.
I do have a question though. But when you're buying this, like with that process, do they just tell you automatically, oh, so your SSH is called this, and you can just connect to it, like when you bought it with Domain.com?
Oh yeah. When I bought the virtual private server from Domain.com, I got an email, and as part of it, it's like, here's your cPanel to do install your software or whatever, and here's your SSH. And so SSH is totally like a gold standard across the board when it comes to Linux hosts. It's like how you remotely get to them.
Oh.
So I mean, I don't care who your virtual private server or dedicated server or whatever you've got up in the cloud. If it's Linux, it's probably going to have. Or even just Unix-based anything. I mean, this will run on BSD.
So it's pretty much easy from the get-go.
Well, here's the thing, though. That
Except
initial configuration is, it's easy to get started. But what I'm going to show you here is I'm logged into my server as Darren, as you can see, Darren at my VPS, whatever. And I'm going to sudo taci to become root. And I'm going to go to /etc/ssh. And if I ls around here, you'll see that there's this file, ssh_config. And we're going to give Vi some love and take a look at that.
What is Vi?
It's just like nano, kind of. So you used nano for your thing. There's also Vi, Vim, Emacs, and a few others. But it's a holy war, so we're not going to get into all that. And so this is where you can actually configure your server. And you'll notice this is actually not the default configuration. I've actually made a bunch of different changes to this. And so here are what I do to an SSH server. And like I said, just like anything in Linux, there's a million ways to do it.
Right.
But here are a couple of things that you might want to be aware of and what they do.
Okay.
So first of all, allow TCP forward. You see I have this set to yes. What that does is this means you can do a SOCKS5 proxy. This allows forwarding, generally speaking. Okay. Sometimes if you just have this enabled, you'll notice that if you create like a dynamic SOCKS5 proxy to your SSH server over here, you can do all your browsing through it, but you'll notice in the session you'll see all these error messages pop up. You haven't seen that on this server because I also enabled gateway ports yes. So that's just something to be aware of. If you're going to do allow TCP forwards, you're probably also going to want to do gateway ports to yes. The next thing here is public authentication. Or pub key authentication, and that's public key authentication.
Oh,
I'll
so
set that to yes.
this enables me to be able to use a public key and a private key.
Yeah, in fact,
Cool.
you know, sometimes you'll find that this is not by default on. And so you're going to need to turn that on if you want to do key-based authentication.
Okay.
Another thing that I like to do, and this is kind of a best practice here, is to say allow users, and then I just specify, in this case, the two users that I allow. You know, Darren and Stubbsy. You know, otherwise,
if I wanted to change any of this back to no, do I just type no next to it?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, in
nice.
fact, what you could do is also, you see how these start with a pound?
Yeah.
That means it's a comment. And so you could, like, if you wanted to say, you know, change this, if you wanted to just comment that out, so now it allows everyone, you just put a pound in front of it.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so there's allow users, there's also allow groups. If we had a group called Hak5 that like Paul and you and I were a member of, I could say allow groups Hak5. Same thing with deny. If you want to do a whitelist versus a blacklist, I could say deny CVS. You know, if I have a CVS set up or a Git or whatever users.
Oh, okay.
Like I have a ZNC on this. ZNC is that IRC bouncer that I showed off a couple weeks back.
Yeah.
And so I created a user for that because I don't need to be running it as myself or root or whatever. But there's no reason why anybody needs to be logging in as ZNC. So I just like to say allow users. Here's my whitelist.
Okay.
Only these are allowed.
Okay, cool.
Another thing, when it comes to logging in, this right here, login grace time, 1M means you have 1 minute to log in.
Okay.
You know, I
Before
know
it'll
I know a
boot you?
nerdcore rapper who likes to set this to like 5 seconds or something. You know, so it's like if you haven't logged in that amount of time, it's going to go ahead and boot you.
Okay.
In fact, if you're using public key authentication, really that should never be an issue.
Yeah.
But that's just going to throw that out there. Next one here is client alive interval. Okay, and so what this means is you were asking before about how like you kept on losing your connection because
Yeah,
you
it
were idle.
disconnected after a while.
Client alive interval in seconds, in this case 60 seconds or 1 minute, means that every 60 seconds it's going to go ahead and if a client hasn't spoken to this server in a while, say like you're connected but you're not doing anything, you're idle, it's going to go ahead and send you a packet. So your firewall is not going to be all like, oh, you know, this TCP connection here between Shannon and the server has not done anything for like 15 minutes.
Okay,
You know what?
so it's going to keep it alive. It's going to keep
It's one
sending
way
packets.
too. We're actually going to be talking about next week
Cool.
ways to
good to
maintain
know.
persistence, but this is one of those ways.
Okay.
And so the other thing is there's a client alive max count, and what that means is how many of these to send until you stop sending them. By default, this is 3. I like to set it to 0. So what that means is there's infinite.
It keeps on sending them.
Yes, because if this default was 3, then after 3 minutes,
yeah, you'd be booted.
Yes. Another thing that we can talk about, I think we've actually already done X11 forwarding. This is pretty cool. This X11 agent, or forward agent in X11 has to do with basically something kind of like VNC or remote desktop, but over SSH, so it's really secure.
Nice. Okay.
We'll get into that some other time, and I'm pretty damn sure we've already shown how to do it. It's for remote desktop, so you get a GUI instead of just the text-based stuff.
Sweet. That's what I want.
Next thing, rhost, remote host, RSA, authentication. Yes, just says, hey, we can use RSA. Authentication, same thing down here. Password authentication. You'll notice I actually have this set as yes.
And that is if you don't have a public and private key and you're just using a password?
Correct.
Okay.
So I actually needed this to be yes because I was setting up our keys and stuff. And so if this was a no, you wouldn't have even been able to log in the first time to set that up.
Yeah.
Now that you have that set up, just don't lose your key.
Okay.
Actually,
no problem.
I'm going to leave this as yes because when we're done recording the show, we're going to go back and redo your public-private key because I think we just gave it out to the internet.
Yeah.
Because your screen recording.
Totally did.
Anyway, there's a bunch of other things as well. Authorized key file is typically down here, and it's going to say something like, %H, which is a variable for your home directory.
Okay.
.ssh/authorized keys. On the other server, it was authorized keys 2.
Yeah. Yeah,
and so that's just saying where that file is.
Cool. Okay.
And then you can see also right here, you've got your ports. So
port 22.
Port 22 is the default, and you could change this to port 222 or 27015 or whatever you want. Sometimes stupid, dumb firewalls will be like, we just block everything on port 22 because that's obviously SSH traffic. But anything over at port 80, which is obviously web traffic, we allow.
That's funny. So you could set it at port 80?
You could. And then, you're not going to also run a web server on that port. You can't have two things on the same port, but you could do that. I actually leave this there. I guess the only reason that you would want to change this is because there are automated bots all the time that are always trying to log in, and they're stupid and hard-coded and say, hey, port 22 is open. Let's brute force the root login. So that brings us to permitting the root login. In fact, I should put this up here in my config just to keep things pretty. And that one is permit root login.
Oh, that's obvious.
No. Root does not need to log in ever.
No.
In fact, we'll get into how you can fix this with the sudoers file here in just a sec. But basically, if you have a lot of admins, you don't want them logging in as root. You want to be able to know who logged in as root. Yes. So I will log in as Darren. And if I need to become super user, I'll do a sudo.
You can just change it after you've been logged in.
Yes, but root itself should never be logging in.
Cool.
And that goes for most things with the exception of backtrack.
Yeah.
Because backtrack is special. And then finally, you see here we've got protocol, 2,1. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and, what's that?
What'd you do?
Well, it was 2,1. I'm taking out the comma 1. I'm saying we only support protocol version 2, SSH 2 only.
Oh,
none of that SSH 1 stuff. You can't use some attack to like block SSH 2 from authenticating and convince the client and server just SSH 2
so anybody
isn't
that's still
working.
living in the
Let's do
90s, they're not going to be able to log in.
Yes. And then down here, you can set different ciphers and things of that nature. Here's the GSS API we were talking about.
Yes.
And those right there, though, are the main ones that I use.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and quit this with a escape:*Q exclamation point to quit out of this. I'm not going to save it. I'll make my changes later. But what I want to show you is that you notice that I'm logged in as root.
Yes.
If I type exit, I'll go back to being logged in as Darren. Okay. Because that's what I logged into the server
You exit again and you get logged out completely.
Right. And I mention this because you shouldn't be logging in as root, but then of course on your server you're going to need to be able to do root functions if you are the administrator. And so for me to even be able to do my sudo tac I needed to be in the sudoers file, which is in /etc, and you see it right here, sudoers. And we'll do a vi sudoers.
I like that it's called sudoers.
Hey, these are the guys who can sudo, right? And you come down here, and there's a whole bunch of different options. And basically, the ones that we care about is allow root to run any commands anywhere. These guys, these are the people. And so you just add your username, in this case, Darren. If I wanted to add you, I could...
you would type in snubzy.
Yep, I could do snubzy. All equals print all. Okay. And then I could either do all or no past WD all. We're not going to do that.
Right, because I'm a crazy chick. You don't need me doing root on your server.
I don't need you losing your laptop and then your private key on the laptop, which isn't in a true crypt
it's not in a true crypt volume at the moment, so yeah, that'd be bad.
But actually, I really shouldn't be lazy and do this. I should just say all. I shouldn't do the no pass WD. But whatevs. Anyway, that is how you do your sudoers. And if I go back into SSH, there was one more that I wanted to mention under the SSH config, and that is the listen address. And so this is something that you kind of need to be aware of when it comes to, like if you have a box co-located at a facility, and it has multiple Ethernet interfaces. Yeah. And so, our laptops, they've only got one. They've got like a Wi-Fi and an Ethernet and then low for local, right? Yeah. And so you'll notice if I quit here and do if config, I have 3. I've got low, of course, local, right? And since this is a virtual, it's a virtual network. This is a virtual private interface. Oh, okay. Or a virtual private server. And so I've got 2 interfaces here. And this one right here, this VENet 0:0, this is the IP address of it is this public IP that's out on the internet, and you can go ahead and try your luck with it. But anyway, point being, this is the only interface that I actually want anyone to be logging in from. Yeah. Sometimes on a co-located box, you'll have like a separate network for backups. Mubix shared with us this interesting tidbit about when he was doing some not pen testing, but when he was doing the research for the thing where he reversed proxy, the reverse DNS looked up the internet. I forget what it was called. The thing you did at Shmuka. Anyway.
Oh, yes. I missed all the talks.
Well, he gets this box over a rack space, and I think he mentioned that like all of the computers, like all of the machines on the rack space are all connected to this internal backup mechanism. I know because I've actually hosted with them before too. And so they have two Ethernet interfaces, and one of them goes out to the firewall and then to the internet. The other one is only internal, and it's used to network all of the machines. So like company XYZ is on the same network as company ABC, and fun stuff.
Yeah.
So you might want to go into your SSH_config and add a line that would say something to the effect of listen address, and then the IP address you want to listen on.
Okay.
And that way...
So this is only your box.
Yes, only the internet-facing IP address, and not that private internal one that we only should be using for backups. But, you know, I'm just going to throw that out there. Yeah, those are my best practices. SSH_conf has so much more. You can hit the man pages to find out more. Of course, after you do all of these changes, you're going to need to restart the service. In Ubuntu, that's really just simply type stop space SSH and then start space SSH. You can also use the service space SSH space restart command, or you can issue restart to /etc/initd/ssh. I know, it's Linux, there's a million ways. See, I just looked at like 20 emails there by doing that, though. And now I'm going to get 25 more emails about the fourth way you can do it.
Actually, you can do it this way.
Yeah, I know, right?
That's okay. You know what? It always happens.
Yes. And so I just figured that I'd throw that out there. Now here, in just a bit, we're going to get to the Technost photo as well as trivia. But first, let's take a quick break. Hak5's 11th season is here, and let me tell you, we couldn't be happier with our awesome sponsor, Domain.com. They've been hooking us up for 3 years now. They're our favorite domain registrar, and the truth is, we really couldn't be happier with them. Hak5.org, our forums, all hosted over there. It's such great stuff. In fact, the virtual private server that we've been using for the whole proxy series over at Domain.com, that's where you can go and get new domains for your portfolio. You can manage your company's domains. You can do a little hacking all over at Domain.com. You know, if you want to do some web hosting, they've got these really quick ways to install and get set up with like WordPress and Joomla, plus a ton of other super easy programs to use over there. And I gotta say, like, over the years, they have been the most awesome when it comes to support. You tweet at Domain.com and they respond like that, and they are like down-to-earth, cool, chill people. So don't forget, when you're buying a domain, head over to Domain.com. Even if you're just transferring your existing names, you can do that and use the coupon code HAK5, save yourself 15%. Now, when you think domain names, think Domain.com. Time once again for the Technost photo of the week.
Okay, so I have another big compilation collage coming
More
up.
kittens?
No, not kittens this time. It's sweet rigs that people have built. Awesome, you know, big 6-monitor type crazy stuff, you know?
Yeah, with the LEDs and the cold cathodes. And
for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so it's a compilation of sweet rigs from our viewers. First one comes from Dave. He's got a 6-monitor rig, sweet 2600 t-shirt. I gotta say, that's pretty awesome. Fossick using Synergy for his Mac and his Windows machines.
Paul does that.
Yeah, Austin using his old 2005 Mac to run Backtrack5 and QEMU. Skunkworks, you remember him, right?
Yeah, I remember Skunkworks.
Yes.
What's up, dude?
So he's got a 5-monitor setup, awesome Hak5 logo, and his DEF CON 19 speaker badge. Holden showing off his rig that he built when he was 15 years old.
Oh yeah.
I know, that's so cool. I think I built my first one when I was like 12 or something. It was around in there. And then Gaxon running Sardu on his machine with a sweet, sexy anime photo in the background, of course. So thank you all for sharing your Technost photo of the week. All of them.
Yay.
All 6 of them.
Feedback at hak5.org is where you can send your own.
Yes.
Put Technost in the subject line so we can find it.
Yeah, makes it so much easier, and hopefully I'll have more compilations coming up because we have a lot.
Cool.
We have a lot to show.
Trivia time.
Yeah, so last week's trivia question was, what feature introduced in DirectX 11 makes in-game textures appear rounder and better defined? And the answer is tessellation.
Nicely tessellated. Got nothing.
I love it. That's awesome.
Okay, what's this trivia?
This week's is, what is the Intel Quick Sync?
That's it?
Yeah.
Cool. Trivia
What
at
is the
hak5.org
Intel
is
Quick
not the email address you want to email. What you want to do is go to hak5.org/trivia. Sorry, my mind is like...
Hak5.org/trivia, and who knows, maybe you'll win some swag from me.
Okay, I need a brain break.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you take your brain break.
Yes, tune in next
gonna
week.
wrap it
We've
up.
got awesome stuff coming up, continuing this series.
Yeah, and of course, we value your feedback. Email us, feedback@hak5.org. Let us know what you think of the show, what you like to see us cover. If you have some kind of tips about everything that we covered today about key authentication,
Proxy
share
chains.
it. Yeah, proxy chains. Just put proxy in the subject line or key authenticators, whatever.
And don't forget that you can always follow everything that we do over at hak5.org/follow, and you'll find the links to all of our stuff, including the Google Pluses. That's where I am.
The social networks and all that good
I'm
sweetie
a
swag.
plussy, or whatever you call it. But
And, of course, and if you like what we are doing and you really want to support us directly, we definitely suggest that you go check out our cool hacker gadgets, our t-shirts, and all the other really cool stuff that we have over at hakshop.com.
yeah, the whole lineup of accessories for the Wi-Fi pineapple.
I know!
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
many accessories.
Get your hack
Wi-Fi pineapple?
hack done.
What's a Wi-Fi pineapple? I don't know what you're talking about.
You know you can reverse SSH with that thing and auto SSH. Anyway, get into that later. Without further ado, I'm Darren Kitchen.
I'm Shannon Morse.
Press your Technost.
Bye!
Cool. Quarter three when it gets done. That. Actually, there's
This is
blinds in here.
dangerous.
Yeah, this one's heavy. Asymmetric here, there.
I'm steady.
At home? Not that close.